Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Emily Rentas, Kazi Mghendi, and Frank Galindo. The question I would like to ask, how do authenticity and kindness go together? Frank, can you kick us off today?
Sure, absolutely, Dr. Robyn. And it's funny because when I was reading the question, first of all, I love the topic because I think there's a lot of relevancy there, but I kept replacing the how with why. And I had to stop that in order to really focus on what you were trying to get at. And so when I did that, I'm thinking, how do authenticity and kindness go together? And I almost feel like for kindness to be kindness, it has to be authentic. I don't know how you separate the two, because the authenticity of actually doing something for someone else, right, which is how I equate the term kindness, right? Well, it could be for yourself, but in this case, the context for me would be how you show kindness to others. To me, it has to be authentic, right? It has to come from the heart. To be nice to someone is different than to be kind. You can be nice and not really mean to be nice or want to be nice, but to genuinely to be kind, just to be kind. I feel like you have to want to, which means you mean it, which means you're being authentic about it. So in my head, that's how I connect the two. There's a distinction there. Kindness, like I said, is distinct from being nice or doing something nice to someone. So that's where my head's at with that is kindness and authenticity go hand in hand, because you can't have one in the definition of the word without the other, right?
So interesting. You looked at that so differently for me. Awesome. Yay. Ladies, what do you think?
Well, I think Frank hit it right there. I think the fact that it's a symbiotic relationship, it needs to go hand in hand. But for it to really do very well, you have to be in touch with your own humanity. Because when you're in touch with your own humanity, you understand the motivations of others, you understand the place that it's coming from. When you have that relationship, it is authentic because you're coming from the place where you're in touch with your own understanding of what being a human is, right? Even though we may not understand certain things, the basis is treating each other with kindness in the sense of having humanity within ourselves. And also doing the right thing when nobody is looking. Right? That's part of the big crux of being authentic. And when nobody is looking and when there's nothing to gain in something, that's a real big demonstration of somebody's character.
I totally agree. I think for me also, I was thinking to myself, like, how do you do these two things together? But also, can you be authentic and not be kind? And I feel like sometimes you can be authentic and not be kind, but you can never be kind and not be authentic, because kindness actually comes with that authenticity, being real, being genuine, being a person who can be dependable and trusted by others and also by yourself. And so kindness and authenticity can actually work together, but sometimes also you can be authentic, but not really kind. And it's a choice to be kind.
And that's where this question came from for me, which is why I was so shocked with where Frank took it first, is it came up for me because I saw someone being specifically not nice, not kind online. And I kind of was like, hey, that's not very kind. And their response was, well, I'm just being authentic. And I was like, ooh, hold on a minute. Is it possible to be authentic and have a negative opinion or a different opinion and still be kind? So that's how I wanted to kind of ask this question. I love that you have all taken it from the other side, is that you have to be authentic if you're kind. So what if you're authentic to yourself? The default wouldn't be kind. Then what? How do you be authentic and still be kind? And I don't know, change that.
I don't know if we would go right to the word kind then, doctor, and maybe just respectful, right? Civil, because I could say something that's not kind, or I can act in a way that's not kind, but I can do it perhaps in a manner where at least you see that I'm purposely not going in that direction because I don't feel it, but I'm trying not to offend you with it. I'm like being upfront about it. Perhaps it's just I have a very hard time separating the two.
Yeah. But even if somebody is being unkind, but they're not being offensive or disrespectful, it's still unkind. There's still a negative connotation of the response that the person is going to receive it. So I think that we're living in a society where too many negative behaviors have been okayed and signed off on, and then people start feeling emboldened and feeling that they can do the same. And especially people get away with certain things and then others think they can, but they don't understand that there's different dynamics that have allowed people to get away with those things, right? The whole idea of, well, I'm just being authentic. Some people can be authentically mean, and that's who they are, but that doesn't mean it's right.
Doesn't mean it's okay. Yes,
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah, I feel like our benchmark has been lowered to that point, Emily, as to what's it. All right, well, maybe that's not so bad, only because we've lowered the bar so low. It's like, well, things that were considered probably at this level of unacceptable, maybe now they are a little bit more acceptable in the grand scheme of things. And that's sad that we've gone to that point as a civilization.
But I think also with the internet and the freedom that we have, there's that need to express yourself, being real. And sometimes being real comes with what Emilia said, it comes with being rude. And there's that thin line. How then do you be respectful and be real at the same time? So it's quite a challenge for anyone. I mean, you have to connect with yourself. I'll go back to what Emilia said, connect with yourself to actually understand I'm actually being real and I'm being respectful to others. And even when I'm speaking or when I'm doing things and even in my thoughts, that I'm actually connecting realness and kindness. So how we use the freedom and the liberty that has come with the internet and connecting to the world through other means, and it calls self-awareness, but also being aware of your environment and the people that are involved in that situation.
The awareness of even just the delivery, the tone, you know, the words that you use, right? I always recommend to my clients, think about two people who are respectfully arguing, but they're not raising their voice. They're debating, they're listening. Part of this is also having the capacity to listen, but to just go in there and like, the volume's up here and the words are being thrown, and that's getting to the point where it's just very disrespectful. And then you can't have a real disagreement discussion.
And I agree with that. I also think that there's some boundaries that are different for women or people of color, and the three of you would know this as much as I do, is that I said something on a Zoom meeting. There was like 40 people and I said something. I got a private message from someone in the group telling me that my tone was unbecoming.
Oh, you, Dr. Robyn, you.
And the thing was, I had been forceful. I had stepped in and said, this is not okay. The fact that someone in the group thought that it was appropriate to tell me I was unbecoming was insulting. Even if he did it privately, that is rude. And so I think that the fact that you can be authentic and kind and still be called out, I think is wrong.
Wow.
Also, when we're feedbacking, how do we give feedback in a way that we recognize that you can feedback and say, you know what, I'm just being real, you know, this and this and that. And then that person actually feels hurt or feels offended or feels like you've stepped a line, but you can give feedback in a way that people appreciate you and they feel empowered and they feel, I want to work with you. I want to hang around you because the way you're giving feedback is actually edifying. And it makes me feel dignified at the end.
And the question becomes, whose responsibility is it? And if I make a statement and the other person doesn't hear it or doesn't feel heard or feels that it's unbecoming, is that on me or is that on them?
Well, you can even ask for specifics. Well, what specifically was unbecoming of what I said? Ask for details, right? The more you get in the weeds, you start realizing the place that it's coming from. Now, if it would have been a sense of like, oh, your tone, I was very taken back, but to the particular word unbecoming, it's like a connotation of like a scold.
Women have a place, because this was definitely a group where men are allowed to behave one way and I behaved that way and it was a problem.
Oh, yeah.
That has more context to it. That's interesting.
Yeah. And so I think that authenticity versus kindness also, not only do I have to be aware of it when I'm delivering, but I think from the other side, there's another piece to it that is much more complicated to recognize.
Right.
So,
yeah. When it comes to gender, then how do you be firm and respectful? And I mean, that's really interesting because you're like, I was just being respectful and trying to say no, but then how is your no interpreted from a different perspective? You know, that's quite interesting because someone felt like you're too bold, you're too confident, you're too empowered. Why should you have the right to say that in that tone or in that way? Yeah, so
exactly.
interesting.
And that is a conversation for a different quick hits, because that would take us 10 minutes all by itself. So I'm going to cut us off there.
Right.
Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. It was so deep and I appreciate it. I look forward to speaking to each of you again very soon.